Well, welcome everybody to the Hire TA Tech Teardown episode 2. As we mentioned last time, over the last few years, the TA technology landscape has grown massively, and it's really difficult now for TA professionals to keep on top of what tools are out there, what tools fit them. And Hire have decided to do a lot of the research for you. So we've gone out to the market and brought the best tools that we can find for you to consider in this series, the TA Tech Teardown series. In each episode, we'll have live interactive demos with various HR and TA Tech. It's a chance for you to ask questions to the leaders of those companies without having to go through a full sales cycle and sales process. As you probably already know, today's guest company is Ashby. We're chatting with the longtime Hire friend and Ashby community and talent advisory lead, Willem, to get his take on why TA teams should be considering Ashby as their go-to all-in-one recruitment platform. We're also joined by Luke. Luke had implemented between 6 and 8 ATSs in his career, too many that he doesn't know the exact number anymore. He's currently leading talent operations at RecTech and actually implemented Ashby in December 2023. So just coming to the end of Q1 of that implementation, and Luke's here to give some insight on how that's been and how Ashby compares with other ATSs that he's used in the past. What you'll get from this session as attendees is a good insight into how Ashby works. You'll be able to see its unique features firsthand in the demo and kind of what separates it from other recruitment platforms out there, and how your TA team can benefit from using Ashby. We also have a Hire community special offer where Ashby are offering Hire community members 10% off their first year if you're a new customer. And the link will be shared for that post-event. So watch attentively as we run through a live demo. I'll pass over to Willem pretty much straight away, who can do a quick intro and jump straight into the live demo. Quick note before that, we've had quite a lot of questions in advance, but if you do have more questions, feel free to add them in the Q&A section or add them in the chat, and we'll try and answer as we go. Failing that, we'll have like 10-15 minutes at the end to do a live Q&A. Great. Over to you.
Thanks, Ben. Ben, I don't know if Luke also wants to introduce himself real quick, but my flow is better if I do last, because then I can go straight into the product. So Luke, can you do 1 minute?
Sure, no bother whatsoever. 1 minute's easy. I'll try and keep it under. Hello, everyone. I'm Luke, and I'm the head of talent operations at RecTech, as Ben said. But for the past 10 years or so, my role has been to embed into hypergrowing tech companies as some form of TA leader and set up the talent function for scale. So the tools, systems, best practices, processes, coaching recruiters and all that fun stuff. So kind of like Mary Poppins, I kind of float around from company to company every few years and help stand them up and then float away to another company. Over the course of that, as Ben mentioned, I've implemented 6 ATSs in 8 years. I'm actually 24 years old. That's what ATS implementations have done to me. But my most recent work around ATS and system change has been with Ashby. So I'm here to just give a little bit of flavor as a TA leader who's just recently used Ashby, and I'm keen to give my flavor and answer any questions.
Awesome, thanks, man. You're looking younger, like since we've met, so it's going well. Right, nice to meet you all. I am going to do an Ashby quick introduction. My name is Willem. I've been in TA the majority of my career since 2009. I've been with Ashby since 2020. First as a customer, so I was actually Ashby customer number 9 when I was kind of like on the journey to, find the best next ATS out there. I had frustrations with the status quo. Heard about the tools that we were building through YC, and decided to, after a successful implementation, helped Ashby also make companies make the switch, right? So I've been in a very fortunate position to help my peers work with Ashby and get better at recruitment. So why Ashby in the first place? So obviously we've seen that the demands on talent teams have constantly been evolving. Like we've been added more and more responsibility. So sourcing, scheduling, analytics, those kind of core things have been added to our tally. And we really feel that the ATS in and of itself is no longer enough. And there was just time for something new. So in the market, we typically see this happening. So there's teams on the basic toolkit, they have an ATS and they do things that we feel are core to the TA practice, manual. So they source manually, they type emails themselves, they do send out surveys manually to Google Forms, or they schedule all their interviews manually, or they do reporting manually. Basically all those tools or all those key things that we as TA folks do, they do manually. And then at some point, the manualness becomes such a burden that you in the status quo needed to invest in a tool that you basically would bolt on onto the ATS. And so the talent frankenstack would be born, right? So you basically stack all those tools up on one another and try to make that TA practice work for you. And that's really where we feel it's not really working anymore for the modern TA team. So that's why we are building an all-in-one suite where RecOps and analytics is at the core of the product. So we started out with this analytical layer. We function kind of like as we believe recruitment operations is the core of what Ashby does. And on top of that, we have sourcing and CRM. We have very good ATS and deep scheduling automation. And obviously, I would love to show you today everything, but that's not possible in the time frame that we have. We're really going to focus on kind of like the RecOps and analytics today. So I'm going to start out with just building a report, show you how you can use dashboarding, the core dashboards, but also some custom dashboards, and then happy to show also some surveying around quality of hire, et cetera, that we've recently shipped. So to sum up, if you're on the talent frankenstack or on the road to talent frankenstack, and that Ashby would be a great tool, like all-in-one product. You don't need to buy all those separate tools. It's one single cohesive thing, and that's also where the benefits come in, right? More data licenses that you need to manage. Recruiter efficiency, hiring teams will be very happy. Your CFO will be happy, and everyone involved. And obviously, I was customer number 7, but we now have over 1,100. These great logos are using Ashby all-in-one. And we also have a separate product that is called Ashby Analytics that we kind of like decided to separate and sell to customers as well if they can't get out of their ATS. But in this day and age, I really feel that it's you should consider making the switch, because you don't want to add another point solution to your stack. You really want to go for for that consolidated approach. All right, let's go into the product. I will first show you kind of like your bearings, and then I will go straightly into reporting. So whenever you land on your Ashby page, it's basically a singular view for every recruiter, hiring manager, person that has kind of like an elevated seat and works with you on recruitment. So it's kind of like structured in interviews at the top. You see all your interviews that are coming up. These funnel straight from the Google Calendar or Outlook Calendar. All your tasks that you need to do. This could be interview feedback, overdue follow-ups, all that stuff. On the right, you can quickly navigate to your application review, to jobs that you're following. And on the left, you can have your dashboards, reporting, etc., readily available. So that just, normally I would demo this all this stuff first. But I think, just to give you some idea of like where you are at the moment within the product. So first, I think the first thing that I, as a when I led TA teams, I would get a lot of impromptu questions around like, hey, can you show me pass rate table, or can you show me how people are doing? Can you show me what the hiring managers are, how the hiring managers are performing? So first thing that I want to show you is kind of like how to build reports in Ashby. We have a bunch of template reports, which kind of like our best-in-class reports that any team uses. And this is a great starting point to kind of like start showing and visualizing data that you need to show on the fly, really. So let's take that example of a CFO or CTO or COO that kind of like asks you, like, show me kind of like, can you show me kind of like how the hiring teams are doing? So I'll take this pass rate report with groupings. I'll just quickly group the stages here. And this basically brings up a pass rate table, and it's kind of like still there's nothing that we can do with it yet. But here's really where you start editing things. So you can, with all the reports that we have, you can edit the time or like the vertical that you're reporting on, and also the time frame. So my demo instance is of since 2020. So I need to select the data that we actually have some data. I'll apply that, and then as you can see, this dynamically updates to all the data that has been in the ATS since 2020. By default, it's grouped by source. So the sources, you can see kind of like how all the sources in the ATS are converting. But to take the COO's question, like we want to see it by hiring manager. And this is really where Ashby gets really interesting, is that you can basically slice and dice all the data that you have in the ATS by any field in the ATS, right? It's not just still data. It's all you can do it on hiring manager, on recruiter, on job, on department, anything that you want. So here, the same kind of like data set has been sliced into how does this work for hiring manager. So this already will tell you some neat information, right? So you can see that, for instance, Ethan is not passing through like many people, so maybe you want to have a chat with him. We can see that, for instance, with the hiring manager phone screen, some folks are passing along a lot of people through to the next stage. So you also maybe want to consider talking to the hiring team there. But like this is kind of like this should be table stakes in ATS. Unfortunately, it isn't. But Ashby has even more powerful components built up on this. We can also, based on these pass rates, we can show the active account and also predict how many hires we will make from the historical pass rates. So as you can see, we can see that we'll make based on the pipeline that we currently have in the ATS. We can see that we probably will make 49.5 hires, and we also see that for hiring manager how many hires they will make. So that's something that we can do. Really great for kind of like prognosis, like where we see typical ATSs have like somewhat of the ability to show some data that's kind of like happening now. We can also show you kind of like in the future what's happening. One of my favorite ones is also let's gray out some stages and see kind of like the real conversion rates. So I want to see hiring manager phone screen to hired, right? Like which of the hiring managers are doing well on the hiring flow. And this is where it gets really interesting. You can see immediately kind of like that. Some people are not moving the needle really, and some people are, right? So the folks that are in the healthy 41, like 30%, they could, you could, as a recruiter or as the TA, you could ask them like, hey, can you train Doris, Dylan, and Emily here on kind of like being better as a hiring manager. So that's the kind of stuff that you can unlock with just a simple report that I just built on the fly and available in the templates. That's one. I think there was a question, obviously we prepared a little bit, and there was a question around kind of like what must I do kind of like for best practices when I'm a small company and I don't really have a lot of data. How can I start with this? So that's a great question. For me, the most important thing, and I'll go back into my my home screen here, is every job has its own dashboard, right? So if I go into, like I'm the recruiter here, if I go into my infrastructure engineering role, beautiful Kanban view, I can show you all that stuff in a deeper dive demo. But every job has a dashboard, and it's similarly built. Basically gives you all the data that you need to really tell the story with your hiring manager and give you kind of like real trust in like what's happening. So this is great to kind of like check in with your hiring teams every week or every fortnight. To go through kind of like, hey, where do we see drop off? How many active candidates do we have actually? How many interviews are we doing week over week? And basically building that cadence in, as we've seen that most teams who start using Ashby just use this dashboard alone and really got kind of like the benefits from synergy between hiring manager and recruitment team, often things that are getting lost. What's also great about Ashby in that perspective is that you can always slice and dice information, right? So if, for instance, the pipeline history, if you want to see, who's that one person in offer in, the week of 15th of April, You can click into any report and then it will automatically visualize that person that is actually in that stage. And you can go from, reports, so strategic, into kind of like operational, and show the candidate profile. And you see the whole journey they've been through with all the interviews that they've been doing. On the right is the feed with all the emails, all the interview process, like the notes, everything that you need to kind of like build a compelling overview. So that's really kind of like Ashby Analytics is obviously great, but it's also super actionable. And this helps teams, be way more proactive around kind of like the data that lives in Ashby. Then I can go one level deeper. We have the ability to just consume our core dashboards. So obviously Ashby, we hold a lot of data, but we also know how to, we as TA leaders obviously don't have the time to build dashboards ourselves. So we have kind of like dashboards already pre-built in Ashby for every persona or every use case. So we have a very high level executive dashboard where, if you share this dashboard with your exec team, they have a snapshot view of like how many hires that we make, how many hires have not started yet, what's our offer acceptance rate, but also, how many monthly hires are we doing, what is our offer acceptance rate, and the more we scroll down, the more granular it gets. Like how many open jobs do we have per department, like the monthly open jobs in the time frame, the amount of interviews that we're doing, and the interviews week over week. So these core dashboards really give you the ability to build that kind of like data layer in teams, or if your team is not yet ready with the dashboarding and the reporting per se. There was one question around kind of like D&I and how Ashby can help with that. As you can see, we also have a D&I dashboard. This is great for kind of like visualizing how you're doing on the D&I front. Obviously, D&I, you need to have people report their race or their gender to you. This could be done in Ashby by hosting a diversity survey at the application, or maybe after phone screen, or after recruiter screen, or after hiring manager screen. But once you start generating that data, we have kind of like a dashboard here that gives you, from all your hires, like how did they dissect interracially, and you can see already that we're hiring quite a few white people, so something to look into and like report back to the business. But we can go even further, like the same pass rate as I showed you. We can also slice that by gender, and we can see female, male, or ratio. And then we already see something happening here in the technical evaluation is that females are not passing through, which is this demo data. So by no means kind of like a fair reflection of what's maybe actually happening. And the great thing is like this is actual diversity data. So I'm clicking on this. I can't click into this, right? So it's gated. Tons of teams are using this dashboard to really start building that flow of kind of like, what are we doing and how are we doing? And then, this really, allows you to, without like once you're on board, you can already start using Ashby Analytics, and there's no actual need to build stuff custom. That said, we can do very custom things as well. And for that, I'm going to quickly move to my other demo instance, where we have, for instance, quality of hire reporting. I think it's one thing that we shipped quite recently. We see a lot of teams that have problems with, how do we actually know that the people that we hire are performing? Quality of hire is a very ambiguous target that everybody's chasing, but like not really any ATS has come out with any meaningful data around this. So this is the dashboard. We have a composition, like what's our overall quality of hire. But the great thing about the way that we set this up is that you can actually run post-hire surveys with Ashby. So before I kind of like show you more of like how this is working, I'll quickly go into the employee surveys. And kind of like we allow you to, when people get hired, send the hiring team, so in most cases the hiring manager, a survey post-hire where you can ask a question. In our case, it's like, how would you rate the employee's performance? It's a linear scale for 1 to 5. You can obviously edit this question if you want to. You can also ask other questions. You could, move this around. You can say like, actually, I want to have this here or there. And really build that kind of like cadence. And then you can also configure when does this survey needs to be sent? So in our case, after 1 month of survey, like fill out that survey, like the hiring manager gets asked to fill that survey after 4 months, after 8 months, after 12 months. And that's really where you start building kind of like that consensus and the ability to look back on kind of like, hey, are the people that we're hiring, great fits, where can we tweak things? And most importantly, one thing that I'm very excited about is the interviewer capacity, right? So do people score strong yeses on particular interviews, and does that actually correlate to great quality of hire? So that's something that we have here in the quality of hire dashboard. I'll quickly go and zoom in on sales. There's also some data. I have kind of like a heat map here where, this is all the people that have a high quality of hire, and people that consistently score like strong no's, so 1. So you can already see that Amanda and Aaron are scoring strong no's to actually people that have a high quality of hire. And this is something that we can then de-risk and discuss with the hiring teams, to make sure that there's any kind of like indiscrepancies that they're being flagged. And also the inverse is true, right? So people that have a low quality of hire, so that aren't necessarily working out, we can talk, we can see that, for instance, Danielle and Donald are basically giving strong yeses to people that are then in the end not working well. So that's the kind of stuff that you can unlock with Ashby that goes way further than the standard pass rate report or time to hire report. And that's, I think, why the Lukes of this world are getting really excited about this stuff. Obviously,
that quality of hire quickly, Will, and that's based on the survey that you've sent as well. We just had a question through on how we're defining that, but is that
so you basically configure a post-hire survey. So obviously, because and this goes with the ATS, like you do your hiring through Ashby, we know the start date, we know that we can send a survey after X amount of time. And then you can, configure the cadence. So you can do 30, 60, 90, you can do 1 month, 4 months, like whatever the cadence that you want it to do. And yeah, this just enables, way more visibility than what I used to do, which is kind of like Excel my life, like export all the data from the ATS, from the performance tool, from the HR tool, and just try to look up everything. I think this is just, way easier and actually gives them greater insights, like first insights. Right. Don't want to demo too long, but like hopefully giving you a glimpse of kind of like how Ashby Analytics and reporting works. And yeah, obviously this is one of the pillars. I've got similar stuff for scheduling, sourcing. Just the ATS at large is obviously a thing that I can demo too.
And
thanks.
Thanks for that. That was an awesome demo. We had a question pre-webinar around candidate experience.
Yeah.
If you can jump back onto the surveys, do you have candidate experience surveys built in as well?
Yeah, I'm actually happy to show you my Ashby instance. So this is actually production Ashby, where I can show you, how I run CMPS surveys myself. So we can run diversity surveys, candidate experience surveys, EOC surveys, and we can do general questionnaires like dietary information during an interview plan or something. So candidate experience survey, you can have as many like surveys as you want to. Like we don't limit you to one or an all or nothing kind of like approach. It's customizable. At Ashby, we just do one. So we ask 3 questions. How would like you to recommend Ashby to others? It's a linear scale. This is the CMPS question, so that drives information. Then we have 1 question around like how were you briefed and some general feedback. And kind of like this is what we send after people have had an interview, and basically customize that to the when it triggers, it will send after 2 days. And then we basically source that information in Ashby, and I can show you the CMPS survey dashboard where you have an explainer like our submission rates by department, but also something that I am close to heart with is kind of like the CMPS score per stage group, right? So for me, it matters where people are declined in the process, right? So we have a lower CMPS at screening stage, so recruiter screen, very high recruiters or very high CMPS at hired stage, which is obviously both expected. Yeah. But I'm very, very proud of like having it pretty high at final round, second round, and offers where you decline people, but they still give you a good CMPS.
Awesome. We have had a question through as well of for your other demos, have you got like pre-recorded demos somewhere where people can jump in and view them after the webinar?
Yeah, we've got some like I've got a sourcing one, I've got a scheduling one, I've got an ATS quick speed run. It's all there. Yeah, and typically, you know, if you would go through a normal demo scene with us, like analytics would be a little bit parked to the end. But this is, you know, I chose this to show today because it's one, higher fidelity. Everybody has data problems, and I think really showcases the Ashby product quite well in terms of kind of how customizable and interesting it could be for TA teams.
100%. And this MPS survey and the surveys in general, are they included with just the analytics tool of Ashby?
Yep.
You need the full ATS for that.
It's also included in analytics tool, but also in the ATS. So basically, the we don't believe that you should buy all those point solutions, right? So we want TA folks to have a very complete product. So it consists of sourcing automation. It consists of like deep scheduling automation. It consists of like the survey modules, etc. There's no add-on cost for that. It's just basically part of the price.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks very much for that.
Right.
That is great. And we can jump onto I guess for more pricing details as well. Willem can have a conversation with you offline, and we'll share a link, as I said, after the webinar with a link to sign up. Follow the link, and you can have like a more in-depth conversation there. Cool. And Luke, when you did your intro right at the beginning, we had a few questions fire away. Basically, along the same lines of, were you using an ATS before Ashby? And what made you choose Ashby as your ATS?
Sure, yeah, I've got a fair bit prepared on that, so that's fine. So yes, we did have an ATS previous to this, but you'd have to understand the business context of the change. So why did we want to make the change in the first place? The business was in a scaling phase, but we also needed to internationalize. We're a Ukrainian-based company, so business continuity is quite important right now, as you can imagine. So there was an effort to internationalize the business, open up town hubs in other areas, and also move from a kind of a more federated way of doing TA in lots of little silos into something that was more centralized, and then build like a true partnership model between TA and hiring managers who have very specific needs through all these changes. So what we realized we needed was four main things, actually. So first of all, operational efficiency. We needed a system that could give us immediate improvements on manual stuff going to automated stuff. So I surveyed all of our TA and hiring managers. We were using about 8 hours a week per recruiter for admin time. That's offer management, interview scheduling, and that's not even like massively high. A lot of businesses that aren't using automated solutions are using about 20% of their time for non-value add time. Looking at Ashby's offer management, so the offer management features, which was very useful, and also the scheduling features, we could bring that down to about 2.5 hours per recruiter. So one of the great ways to sell this to our executive team was that we're getting for the size of our team, we were getting about 77 hours of recruitment time back in our team per week. So that's like 1.7 free recruiters we just chiseled out from the waste, the admin time that Ashby was going to give us. So straight off the bat, the people that's going to sign our checks, we need to give them what the quick wins was the value. So that was a really good way to sort of pitch Ashby to the business. We also needed to look at governance as well, which is something that isn't looked at that much, but essentially, how do we fold all Ashby and our new system into broader workforce planning? So all of the openings and the configurability and the reporting, we can link that much more easily to finance and to HR and to leadership. So, you know, whoever it is, job it is to take a big step back and go, right, I'm doing the workforce planning. They can do that with ease. And Ashby, because of its reporting features and the way the entities are set up in a very in a much more decentralized way compared to traditional ATSs like Greenhouse and whatnot, that was the winner. the holistic sort of, Willem's already mentioned it, you know, it's a highly holistic kind of comprehensive tool. And what that meant for us was communication. We had one platform to communicate from start to finish, all the way through the employee life cycle. When it came to TA, one of the problems with having your frankenstack is a note or an email or something happens over here and stakeholder A, B, or C doesn't find out about it. So having one platform, having an approvals workflow that can live in Ashby, offer management that can live in Ashby, all your standard ATS stuff for, you know, feedback, scorecards, reviews, notes, guidelines, it all allows us to engage with our hiring managers way, way, way better, because we're teaching our hiring managers, instead of shooting a Slack message or an email or not doing anything, you can just leave a note in Ashby and it'll get to the right person, and you can immediately, that feedback loop is immediate. So that was valuable. And then lastly, the actual reporting and analytics. So we wanted to set up a cycle of continuous improvement. So not just partner and do better at recruitment, but can we see what we did this quarter? Can we come up with a plan per function to improve something marginally, maybe a outreach campaign or maybe an offer, you know, sort of how we deliver offers or whatever it is. And then how do we then measure that quarter for quarter, make very specific, very particular improvements, and round we go, cycle of continuous improvement. You can only do that when you can see in a very granular way what your recruitment looks like. And Willem's just shown that pretty well with the pass-through rates, funnel data, distribution of scores, and so on. So that was essentially why we chose it. Does that answer your question? I don't want to waffle too hard.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it actually touched on another question we were asked pre-webinar, which was if you have a rec ops team or an exec team that are really familiar and really comfortable with their existing product and platform, like how do you influence them to make that change? I think what you articulated there sums that up perfectly. Getting it all in one system. Yeah, really, really big win. So thanks for that. And you're like 3-4 months into the implementation now. I'd be interested to hear how you found the implementation of Ashby.
Yeah, well, the paint is still fresh on it, which is nice. I've got my shiny new toy. So yeah, we well, first of all, the speed at which we could go live was pretty cool. So overall the implementation compared to the 5 others I've done was really straightforward. The fact that it is so highly configurable. A lot of ATSs, that their architecture is kind of built around a big fat ugly job entity, and then there's lots of things added onto it, and it means that if you want to make changes or little different types of reporting or custom fields added in, it's really hard to do it. You have to go back through this big all your historical data. Whereas with Ashby, everything's its own little module. Your custom fields, I just go into my admin panel, I type in custom fields, and I'm ready to add in custom fields into any entity that I want. Openings, offers, locations, departments, it's all got its own little module, and it's like Lego. You can just make your ideal job with little Lego bricks on the inside of the system. So that made the actual implementation piece, because I was a kind of a one-man band when it came to the actual systems implementation this time around, which was terrifying. But what I realized was what I expected would take maybe 3 weeks of just solid work actually took about a week of solid work with Ashby, because once I'd made the pieces, it was an absolute snap to just put the jobs together. So I hope that's not too sort of high level. Second of all, the customer success team knew Ashby inside and out and through and through. They really took a lot of time to get to the bottom of our actual business goals, which again is something that is sometimes overlooked when you're trying to sell a tool. Tools aren't solutions, right? So we need to actually look at the real business solution to the business problem, and then how can the tool, in this case Ashby, help us do that with an order of magnitude less effort. That's what the tools are for. So the customer, so shout out to Beth Davis over in the States, and to Emily Withers in London, who really helped us out, answer any and all questions, and gave us good guidance on how we can configure it initially. So that was kind of that's where we are. And then lastly, we went with a very iteratable model. The business is changing very fast, so you don't have to switch on everything in Ashby all at once. We can start with an MVP, And again, because we don't need to get some like a Workday style consultant and pay them more money to make any changes in the future, it's so configurable. We can start with something that works, has those initial wins, learn from it, and then Q1 add some more advanced features, and then get feedback from our stakeholders, add some more advanced. So you can get all of Ashby and put it in maybe a 6 month or a 4 quarterly roadmap if you wish, and that way you can be a bit more iterative about the way you implement it. But again, what that means is super easy to set up an MVP, and that's the only way I could have done this all on my own in about, I think it took about 10 weeks, like start to finish, one person. If you had a team of recruiters all working, it probably took maybe 6 weeks.
Yeah, amazing. And one of the questions again we had in advance was, what would be the top tip when implementing Ashby? And I guess you covered it there, right? Start with the MVP and then iterate and grow as you go.
And if I can chime in a little bit on that, it also depends really, like if you're coming, for instance, for Greenhouse or for Lever, like we have their API completely mapped out. So the data sync is basically through API, and you lose zero data. So there's a lot of time saved there. And that's also why we can, like, we lead with these like 4 to 6 week implementation phases, is one, because we know how to migrate and do it quickly, and then we can save that time with all the CSV mumbo jumbo that you're probably used to really onboard the customer, right, and really make them successful.
Yeah, I would say the fact that it's like a little graphical user interface like inside the system that allows me to like bulk upload data is really, really handy. We're integrating it with Workday right now, and it's an API, and the people on the Workday side literally don't believe us when we say how easy. They think we're missing a trick or something. No, it's all done by API. It is super duper easy. Just tell us what fields you want. We'll make sure it's in Ashby. Everything else on our side is going to work. So that is cool. The one thing I would say, if you were to actually answer that question about tips on implementation, it's not specific to Ashby, but just understand what the actual business problems are before you start work on your MVP. A lot of people, it sounds strange, but they actually miss out the actual project management bit. So to give you an example, I have TA business partners, and this is not just my current company, previous companies, who say, oh, we can't wait for this new tool. We're going to be able to schedule things so much easier. We're having so much trouble scheduling interviews. And then when I dig deep and say, well, why is it so hard? They say, oh, hiring managers just keep rescheduling. They don't turn up. Well, that's a business problem, isn't it? That's not nothing to do with the tool. No, the best tool in the world couldn't solve that problem. You're avoiding a difficult conversation with a stakeholder, and you think this tool is a magic bullet. So I'd say to anyone who's going to implement Ashby, if you want my honest advice, is do a bit of project management, do a ton of requirement gathering, and actually figure out the real business utility, and then decide on your MVP. What specific thing from Ashby is actually going to solve these problems? Otherwise, you're going to end up with a bunch of people with their own little versions of like magic bullets in their mind, and maybe one person out of 16 stakeholders are going to be happy with the solution, and you don't look very good if it was your responsibility. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Thank you very much for that. And thanks for all the context as well. That's super interesting to hear your experience of implementing Ashby and how it integrated with previous systems and data transfer and all that is really good to hear. We do have a few more questions that were sent in before. It's a quick reminder that if you have questions, feel free to ping them in now, and we can do a little bit of a Q&A for 10 minutes before we wrap up. One of the questions that came through was, what's the most ignored or overlooked feature of Ashby that drives impact? So this one probably for you, Willem.
Yeah. Great. I really love that question because it's also something that I sometimes overlook. But we have Ashby alerts. These could basically notify you, the recruiter, anyone, when something's happening that you don't want to happen going forward. Mm-hmm. So a good example, for instance, is that I've built we have an SLA, 5 days, people can stay in the application review stage. And if they're, moving into the 6th day, that's an SLA violation. And normally you would have that on a fancy like internal document, but nobody would really action it. But Ashby, you can actually build a report that kind of like when somebody triggers kind of like those fields, you automatically send an alert out. So I actually have that quickly prepared for you. So if I go into my alert here, so I've built an alert, kind of like 5 days in application review. So it's like the filter logic is easy, kind of like everybody that's an application review. Then you could say like how days in current interview stage group is greater or equal than 5. And then I'm listing kind of like as an Excel tab, like how, the name, recruiter, the hiring manager, the coordinator, and how many days they've been in that current interview stage group. And then once you've built that report, we have kind of like the alerts, right? So you can say, I want to have added records immediately through Slack to me as the head of TA, but also to the recruiter and to the hiring manager that they're breaching their SLAs. And this is a great way, like this is such an awesome feature to, you know, really hone down on like making sure that your SLAs are being met and that you're actually managing them, right? Because often it's just something that's a vanity metric somewhere on a piece of paper, and with Ashby you can really utilize that. And the great thing, like again, you don't have to build all these things. Like we have even a template report for all the alerts that kind of like the biggest and best RecTech teams on Ashby are using. So yeah, one of the most overlooked tab, this alert template one. Luke, did you know that this was here or not?
Yes, it's cool. This is something that's on our roadmap for this quarter. I would say again, you need governance before you write down SLAs. If someone gets that email and then nothing happens if they don't do it, doesn't matter. So it is a superb feature. I've not seen anything else like it. But again, I would say to any TA leaders, like write your governance down, write a racy chart for your SLAs, and that way they know that they're in the naughty. They're on the naughty step if they breach their SLAs.
Yeah, that's a really cool feature. I like that a lot. Speaking of features, are there any secrets of the product roadmap, Worm, that you're happy to share with the viewers?
Yeah, for sure. So we kind of like the way that we do Ashby features, and basically the announcement of that is that we do like we've tiered them up like tier 1 to tier 3. Like we do one major tier 1 release every quarter. So yesterday we shipped kind of like the scheduling add-on, which has kind of like AI scheduling, all that stuff. And then we do tier 2, which is kind of like smaller features. And then tier 3 is kind of like quality of life, like best practice features. What I'm excited about for like Q2, we're shipping hiring manager experience survey. So I showed you candidate experience, I showed you quality of hire, but like hiring manager experience is next, which I'm excited about because I'd love to kind of like know what how my recruitment team is perceived. We're shipping texting. We're getting way more high volume teams, or teams that have kind of like a blue collar and a white collar hiring ecosystem. So we're shipping like native texting, so not through partner, but native texting, WhatsApp, etc., into the product. We're also branching out in our post-hire approach, so an onboarding product. So basically that gap between hire and when they're in the HRIS, having a really good functionality there. And newsletters. So I think that's also one thing to kind of nurture your talent. Often requested feature to be able to, people that have shown interest, actually kind of like enrich them and send kind of like an engineering newsletter or whatever, and build that in the product as well, which is super exciting.
Nice. Very cool. And there's if we have one question to finish off on our side. Again, if anyone has more questions, feel free to ping them now. But if you had to pitch Ashby to a CTO, what would be the one compelling rationale that you'd go with?
Yeah, this is a funny question that this came in. Like we actually had a billboard on the Highway 101 in San Francisco that actually quote unquote says what an ATS should be, recruiting software even your CTO will want to use. So we actually lead with this. Like a lot of CTOs are really happy with Ashby. It's mostly around feature density. I think CTOs love it that we give the teams so much enablement with just ranging from the core functionality that they would normally kind of like buy separately in like 4 or 5 products. So I think that's one. Secondly, kind of like the dashboarding and the reporting, like finally data that they can trust. And you will see more like engineers or like hiring teams log into Ashby because they can finally get the data out of the system, right? And they don't have to do kind of like wonky things. So I think those 2 things. And yeah, I think often CTOs that really care about hiring, right? Those folks are if you show them Ashby, they will be raving, right? I think that's they've been so underserved, and yeah, that's the general consensus that we get from our CTOs.
Excellent. Well, there's been no more questions come through, so will wrap up there. Thank
I think
you.
I see one more question in the chat from
Have we got
Chloe.
one more question? Which one is that you've seen come through?
Chloe Thacker says, have you moved anyone across from Home Run?
Okay.
And this is funny. When I implemented Ashby, I actually came from Home Run. So yes, and I'm the example. I'm from the Netherlands, and Home Run is a Dutch small ATS, great design, like know the founders, lovely people. Often, you start scaling out of that quite quickly. So yeah, we've moved Home Run people before, especially in the Dutch ecosystem. And basically those migrations are quite easy as well, because it's often a smaller instance, and yeah, done in the similar fashion as how Lucas experienced it.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, thank you so much, both Willem and Luke. That was super informative. As mentioned at the start, Ashby are offering the Hire community members 10% off their first year if you're a new customer. And the link for that will be shared post-event, so keep your eyes out for that. All of these webinars are going to be shared at hirehq.com. That's a new content hub page for Hire. Again, a link for that will be shared in an email afterwards. So if you're wanting to get colleagues to have a look at this and see the Ashby demo, feel free to share that with them. And make sure you check in there. But that's all from us. Thank you so much, guys. Really good to speak to you. And thanks all for attending. And we'll see you soon.